Welcome to Holdsworthy Live. This used to be a channel 2 years ago that some of you might remember, and for those of you who have no idea what this is, it's a channel about politics but less fart jokes. So I've been getting a lot of requests to restart Holdsworthy Live, but the problem is that it's a real struggle trying to get Miss Love and Jordan in one spot for the podcast, that restarting Holdsworthy Live is probably going to be one of those dreams that will remain unfulfilled. So this episode, if I may, is about another dream that will probably be unfulfilled. Hey buddy, calm down. Okay, so that's Buddy. That's my grandma's dog that I'm taking out for a walk. But anyways, it's about the Green New Deal and why you should give a shit about it. I've been getting triggered by so many pundits in the US, in fact all over the world, actually just shitting on the Green New Deal. Let me just preface this whole thing by saying how awesome AOC really is. I mean, if I could, I would work for her for free. Just like trying to give her advice on some of the stuff that I think is important. And I'm really happy that she's taken on this Green New Deal. So why is it important? Well, first of all, I'm not even gonna discuss the environmental aspect of it, which sounds bizarre because it's the Green New Deal. But I think this is extremely important for not just the American economy, but for the world economy. So you were sitting in, I don't know, wherever the hell you are, in Dublin or whatever. Why would you give a shit? First of all, this isn't fucking Venezuela. What happens in the US is extremely important for the rest of the world. You don't believe me? All those guys and women that were laughing at the Trump campaign and Trump being elected, the fact that middle America, just like 4 or 5 states, were pissed off at their government and elected a maniac has impacted the entire planet. First of all, the Paris Agreement's gone. We're about to wage war against Iran, which is probably should be my next Holdsworthy Live episode, so more on that later. So whatever happens in the US is extremely important for the rest of the world, so that's why you should give a shit. This isn't just American-centric. It's important that we realize what's happening over there. Anyway, so why the Green New Deal is important? The problem in the global economy is that investment is really low. The reason why investment is low, so all over the world, the interest rates set by, for example, our RBA or whatever, the monetary policy of the entire world, has continued to be, since 2008, extremely low interest rates. What does interest rate even mean? So interest rates essentially mean the cost of borrowing money for anyone, for you. If you want to get a loan, the interest rates that the monetary policy matters to you, because if the interest rate's high, it's more expensive for you to borrow money. If the interest rate's low, it's a lot cheaper for you to borrow money. And essentially the whole point of that is, the lower the interest rates are, the more investment that is supposed to be promoted from it, right? So that's why governments do it, because they lose money from it. If the cost of money is high, your state is happier because you're getting more money out of the investments. But if it's low, in certain places in Europe, it's actually negative. So you'd actually give you money for borrowing money in order to boost investment. What's the result? Investment remains still extremely low. In fact, the US is a little bit different. The US economy is doing decent, but in a very short-term basis, because it's mostly from these tax cuts that Trump's given. But this is just going to evaporate. Eventually the economy is going to come back, and in fact it'll be in a recession and with less money for the government because they didn't collect as much taxes. And this is the reason why Green New Deal is important. The reason why investment is low is because business owners or private firms aren't just afraid of putting in money. They're also afraid of, if they put in that much money, how much demand would they be able to generate in 10 years, 20 years? Because these would be big projects. And that's what keeps them at bay. So they're in a pessimistic economy like the one that we're living in now, um, they don't risk it. They just keep it in the bank, get like interest out of it. So there's huge amounts of savings. So how do we overcome this? Well, you try to get the one institution that isn't shit scared of losing money, and that's the government. It's government's job to be able to provide investments in areas that no one else is willing to put investment in, for whatever reason it could be. Although it's bizarre that the business owners and private entities are still not putting in that much effort in green energy. I mean, they are. It's obviously increased heaps since the last 10 years because it's still uncertain. I mean, you still have the Republican Party, which, like Chomsky says, is the most dangerous organization on this entire planet. It's because it's the only organization that's hell-bent on destroying the world by denying climate change, right? So because of this, there isn't business confidence to put massive investments into green energy. So what do you mean by green energy? By putting in investment, it's obviously going to generate jobs. And once you put in massive investment, government investment, what follows is private investment, right? So this is extremely important for the government because it's extremely important for the American economy. And what the Green New Deal essentially is that it's a framework of a series of decisions that are going to be made over the next 10 or 20 years in strategic investments that basically help not destroy the planet, gives jobs. It's similar to what FDR did after the Second World War, essentially trying to put in investment where investment is required because there's such pessimism in the economy. It's important because if you allow decent kind of investment to happen, then what eventually leads, buddy, calm the fuck down. What it leads to is demand from the consumers, and eventually, once they demand from the consumers, so they start buying shit, so they pay more taxes. So it eventually helps the government. It's a win-win solution. Now, the other question that comes up is, well, what about the money? Who's going to give all this money? It doesn't grow on trees, you know. Like, I've got a question, and this isn't rhetorical, this is an actual question. After the 2008 financial crisis, when most of the banks in the US and pretty much the entire planet went bankrupt, and they were bailed out, where did that money come from? And this isn't a point of like, well, if you're going to give it to rich people, also give it to save the planet. Like, I'm genuinely asked, where do you think that money came from? And you know where it came from? Thin air. That's it. We don't live in a pre-1930s world of gold standard. Most of the money that's generated by banks is actually out of thin air. And debt in itself also obviously, like, it eventually leads to like debt because obviously you don't have the money, so you're gonna have to pay it back. Now, debt is sort of a bad word, but it ought not to be. So debt's bad if you're buying a V8 Holden that is probably going to consume all of the fuel that you are going to put in it, and also is kind of a shit car, I'll admit it. Like, Japanese know how to do it. But it's not that bad if, for example, you put in an effort, you put in money, or you borrow money to do like a 1-year course on computer programming. Because obviously it's going to make your income grow, and on net, that debt that you accumulated, you're going to be able to pay it off, and now you're much richer than you ever would have been because of that debt, because you took that debt. So, get this debt done. And also, the other thing is, like, the other like figures that people were pointing out is like, it's going to cost the economy $93 trillion. First of all, that figure's it's overestimated. Secondly, that's like me saying that your energy bill is going to cost you $3 million. It probably may be over the course of your entire life if you accumulated it, but to say that that's the cost of something that's such a long-term strategy is disingenuous. So, every economy has surplus areas and it has deficit areas. So, for example, in Australia, Sydney, Melbourne are surplus areas. Dubbo and fucking Albury are not. That's why, like, our regional towns are dying. So what do? You take money from the surplus areas and you give it to the deficit area. That's basic economics. And And so why does it matter in the Green New Deal context? Because it's essentially going to do the same thing. So if the government's going to put in so much investment in the whole green economy, that investment ought to be put into fucking Nevada, Nebraska, and all these Rust Belt areas that were responsible for Trump being elected. It's going to make them happy. It's going to give them jobs. And these jobs that are rapidly disappearing because of, you know, mechanization. In fact, it's gonna get way worse. So like, it's the world that we're headed to can potentially be really, really shit, with a huge population, a huge swath of population that's going to be unemployed. This isn't gonna fix, like, the Green New Deal is not gonna fix that. That's actually a much bigger demon that needs to be dealt with in a different way, but it will cushion the initial bits of it. And also, did I mention it will also save the entire planet? I mean, that seems like a good reason, and I wasn't going to talk about it, but like, obviously it's a fucking big issue. So anyways, I was just out for a walk and I decided to do this because I was getting bored, and Buddy's pretty pissed off because he wants to run around and I'm just sitting here like a loser. And he's making these weird sounds. And also I really want to let him off the leash, but I can't because Buddy isn't my dog. And I'm really afraid that he's going to run away because no one takes him out for fucking walks. Because my grandma's really old and the people that she lived with don't give a fuck. It's a real tragedy. Call fucking animal rescue or whatever. Actually, don't. Like, it's fine. He gets food and everything. And I'll come around every now and then to take him out for walks. But anyways, so stop shitting on the Green New Deal. All of these pundits, sorry, this is the last point before I go, and I probably missed a lot of things that I wanted to talk about, but this is the last point. The entire strategy of mainstream media in the US is based on how viable it is for the Green New Deal to pass, and how ridiculous it is that it's all about like the 2020 elections and how this is going to be a death warrant for the Democrats. Can you explain people what the fuck this is and what it's intended to do? Maybe that could be, you know, at least like 20% of the coverage about this topic. It's a really, really good idea, and obviously it needs work, but the whole idea is based on the fact that, like, it will be worked on. It's not a policy. And a lot of people in the US might not want this. Might not be really popular at the moment, but if you remember, so was Obamacare. What ends up happening is, once people start getting benefits from it, then they're like, actually, you know, this isn't that bad. Like, that's why when Trump wanted to repeal and replace, it didn't end up happening, because like his own constituency that would like literally give him one of his kidneys, as soon as he said, well, let's get rid of Obamacare first, they were like, fuck this shit, not happening, because I don't want to die. So yeah, more coverage should be about, like, I don't know, I guess this is what I'm doing. Or maybe I should talk about like what it's about and not just its benefits. Maybe I'll do one on that. But next should be on Iran. And also, thanks for supporting the three of us. And Jordan and Miss Love are here in spirit. But it's mostly going to be just me every now and then. And if the camera quality sucks, I'm sorry. This is just my shitty Oppo camera that the Chinese government is spying me on. But anyways, alright, I'll see you guys later. Bye. Say bye to Buddy.